Hello, I will now quickly go through the different settings in MuGen, the music generator, to tell you a little about what the different options mean, how they will influence your generated music. First, we have to talk a little bit about some musical concepts. We have something called a bar. And a bar is a kind of a period in time that is divided into one or more beats. So in MuGen, we have 4 chord bars as the default settings, and each bar is divided into 2 beats. And each beat contains at least 1 note. This is what these settings mean. 4 bars, 2 beats per bar, at least 1 note per beat. When I say at least 1 note per beat, that is because the note can be divided into smaller parts to create melody. So a melody that would always be 1 note long for a beat would be quite boring. So we need some rhythm. So we divide each note into smaller parts to create this rhythm. Okay, so the next thing we have to talk about is progressions. You can see there are some numbers in these drop-down boxes. And these correspond to notes, and they are numbered in a way that means that a higher number is a higher note. And number 1 is the root note. And what that means is the note you have chosen as the bass key that corresponds to the 1. And the 3 is 2 notes above it, so that in this case would be a C. This progression 1, 3, 4, 5, if you listen to that, we would expect the root note, then a couple steps higher, and then a step higher, and then another step higher. So it will have 3 notes, one higher than the last one. So let's listen to that. Just to make it a little more obvious, I'll just turn off inversion, so we will come back to that later. I will also turn off the melody so we can hear the progression properly. So let's generate a song and listen to it. Hopefully you could hear the bass note and the increase in pitch for each following note. And as you also hopefully could hear, is that you have 2 beats per bar and that you have 4 bars. After the 4 bars it would repeat. So let's have another listen. I'm counting the bars now. So now I'll try to count the beats. Well, hopefully that was clear. So just to demonstrate the tempo, let's change it to 180. Generate again. Well, yeah, as expected, that was a lot quicker. So let's try 40. Yeah, you get the point. Let's put it back. Let's listen to the different keys and minor and major. So First we can listen to major versus minor. So you remember the minor sound. So let's try major instead. Maybe not super obvious, but it sounds a little more happy maybe. We also have different modes. That's kind of an advanced topic, so we don't touch that right now. But we can change the bass key to see what effect that has. So let's go to the D minor instead, to compare that to the A minor. So now the root note should be 4 steps higher, so let's listen. Compare that to this one. Yeah. Right. So the next checkbox is intro. So what the intro will do is generate a small progression before the song starts. And likewise the outro will do the same, just at the end of the song. And both of them will use the intro, outro, pre-chorus progression. So let's just set that to 1-1. So we'll just repeat the root note a couple of times before the song starts, and let's listen to the result. Okay. The next thing I want to show you is the chordless checkbox. What the chordless will do is remove the chords from the song. So I'll just go back to the expert settings and remove the silencing of the melody so you can hear it. So first we will play the melody without chordless. Okay, and now we will check chordless and see what happens. It should now sound a little more kind of simple, not as fleshed out. So why would you use chordless? For example, if you want to make chip tunes that sounds like chip tunes back in the day, you should probably use chordless, as the musical hardware from that time didn't have as many sound channels. Maybe you had just 1 or 4, so you didn't really have room for chords. So if you want to make your chip tune sound genuine, probably try to use chordless melodies. Next one is FX. So that is kind of like a sprinkle of notes at some different parts of the music, just to keep the music interesting, introducing some new elements to engage the listener. So let's listen. Yeah, I chose the gun sound as the FX instrument just to make it obvious when it was playing. So yeah, should probably change that for a real song. Pads, that is some usually long notes to flesh out the song even more than with chords, to make the sound kind of a fuller I think I'll just demonstrate, and so you can listen to the difference. Now without the pads. So hopefully you can listen that it's kind of simpler in a way without the pads. Chord separation, that is if you have each chord, each note of each chord will get its own track, so that you can have one instrument for the chords themselves, and you can have different instruments for the root note and the other notes of that chord. So let's turn on chord separation and listen. Without it. So you might ask, hey, that sounded a lot like pads, so what's the difference? The difference is that chord separation uses the notes from the chord, but the pads always uses the root, the third and the fifth of the current progression. If that does not make sense to you, then don't worry about it. Probably you should use one or the other, and rarely use both at the same time, unless you have plans for those tracks in your DAW. Chord melody. If you choose a chord melody, it will create a melody based on your chords. It will use the notes from your chords to create a melody. If you switch it off, it will use all the notes in the current scale to create a melody. So a chord melody is kind of less complicated. It's easier to make it sound good, maybe. It's never challenging the listener in any way. But a scaled melody that is kind of using the whole scale, you will get a lot more different notes. It can maybe sound a little more complex. So let's see if you can hear the difference. Yeah, a little more going on than in the chord melody. So depending on what kind of music you want, choose one or the other. Let's jump over inversion, sevens, etc. for now, and go to chord strumming. A chord strumming will mean that when playing chords, it will not play all the notes at the same time. It will play the notes quickly one after the other, kind of like when you're strumming on a guitar. So let's listen. Yeah, it's a bit better fit for some instruments than others. For example, if you have a piano, maybe not a super good fit, but a guitar instrument, a very good fit. Extend. This is an interesting one, because let's say you have a progression of just 2 notes, but your progression length is 4. What extension will do is it will extend the number of notes to the progression length. So it will repeat or lengthen some of the notes, so it will fit with the progression length. So let's say we have a progression length of 2, 1 and 4, but the the chosen progression is 1, 4, and the progression length is 4. So either you will get 1, 4, 4, 4, or 1, 1, 4, 4, or 1, 1, 1, 4, in some combination to stretch the progression out to fit with the chosen progression length. So let's have a listen. So now you could hear that the number 1 was stretched, and the 4 was remained unchanged. Okay. Random instruments, that will just choose different instruments for each song. Random drums will do the same for drums. Random key scale mode, that will gray out the bass key and the scale and mode selection, and we'll choose that randomly for each song. If you're very adventurous, you can also choose random progressions, and it will choose, or it will actually create a new progression for each part of the song. So that could lead to some interesting results, some good ones and some awful ones. But just try to experiment and see what you can come up with. Let's just, for fun, create a song with these settings. Wasn't that bad. Now we can go through the different song structures. As you can see, we have the verse only that we just listened to. That is just the same verse, same song, melody and progression over and over. Then you have the verse and chorus. That is kind of the modern pop song. That will have a mellow part with less energy, followed by a faster and higher part with more energy, and then going back to the slow part again, alternating between the two. That's the verse chorus structure. We have the build up that will start slow and then build momentum as time progresses with more variation, more instruments, more tracks as time moves along. We have the breakdown, build up, drop structure that will create the typical EDM structure. Okay, so now let's talk about chorus and drop variations. We'll start with a song structure of verse and chorus. They both use the same progression, 1, 4, 5, sounding like this. If you choose the variation major minor, that means if the verse is in minor, the chorus will be in major, and vice versa. If you choose the relative major minor, it will use the relative scale for the chorus, and that means it will use a different scale but with the same notes, but the tonal center will be somewhere else. This is kind of music theory stuff. You don't really need to know music theory to use this program, but it helps explain this concept. So let's just try the major minor variation and see what first let's choose none, so the verse and chorus will be the same, and let's see what we get. Now we're still in the verse. That's the chorus. back to the verse. Okay, so now let's choose the major minor variation and see what happens. So hopefully you can hear that the chorus changed kind of mood. It maybe sounded a little more happy than the verse. That is quite normal for pop songs. So let's choose the relative major minor and listen to that. What happens to the song then? It sounded a little bit different than the major change. So just try to experiment and see what you like. Of course, you can have variations for your bridge and your solo as well. But of course, you won't get any result if you don't choose a song structure that contains the solo or bridge. Also, you can choose your progressions for the solo and bridge here if you want different progressions for those. Okay, so that concludes the beginner tutorial. So in the next video I'll go over the advanced settings.